Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. Tony Russ Dunning. So 3 big things for you guys today. So we want to talk. We had a team event this weekend for our KIME team, and I really want to just talk about why. And I think one of the key developments of like what makes a great team. And I think this is a good event and a contributing factor to what we're trying to build as a team here. There's some great news out and some big activity in the Supreme Court over the last few weeks. And certainly the Chevron Doctrine, I think, is one of the things that can change healthcare, among many other things. But we might actually see one of our first big moves towards the transformation of that and talk through some of those thoughts and where we're at there. And then big news for us is our clinic is open in Vegas, up and running, rocking and rolling. So that's super exciting. So we'll tell you a little more about that journey and what we have planned out there. So first thing, teams. So obviously, the big overall value and philosophy for me is that I believe that as a team we can achieve more than we can individually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's playing a sport like basketball for me my whole life. That just seems to make sense to me. You can't score individually, or certain players only score so much. You need other players to do other jobs, and so if people do their jobs, this is the kind of thing. Know your role. This is Bill Belichick's, do your job. All of this stuff, I think, is part of what makes a team function and come to a height.
You also can only engage in individual effort to such a length. If you work on your skill set and say you shoot hoops and you just work on dribble, shoot so many times, you might get better at one aspect of that, but try and do it against a defender. So the point is, you're really only as good as your teammates elevate you to be. So if excellence is a value in your heart and your soul, then who you surround yourself with will either drag you down or lift you up. And that's the essence of a team.
100%. Yeah, just the sheer methodology of running a business. There's no way that one person, it wouldn't be a business if it was one person, but there's no way that one person, like in our field of therapy, could actually operate a sound business. It's not possible. There's no way you could actually do the service of providing the care at the highest level out there, take care of all of the business needs, administrative needs, make sure clean claims, everything's gone smoothly financially, social media, you name it. If you grow a little bit, any kind of we call it talent and culture, but maybe normal human resources type of needs, you need more people to be doing jobs at a higher level and have each of them have an expertise in what they do to really kind of raise the bar. And so that's what we're building here is we have people in different areas of accountability that really, really star and really, really shine, that really complement what, at the end of the day, what our product is or what our service is a physical therapy product to the end user, which is provided by a therapist, which is backed by a large group of people that really make it possible for them to come to work and focus on doing that excellence every day versus getting distracted and getting pulled in 400 directions.
I think that philosophy is it's a beautiful story of why a team is successful. I think the real interesting human science is, well, how do you grow such a team? What are the aspects of that? And to that, I think I credit a lot to the book The Culture Code, written by Daniel Boyle. He's a journalist writer that analyzed the best teams, in the world, and he cites what are the key aspects of that. And one important thing he talked about is collisions of internally of times where people can connect and collide. And with those collisions, such great things can happen, whether it's an exchange of great ideas or just the human connection of I support you, let's play a competitive game.
Totally. This is one of those things I think we lost, and I think has been recognized as a loss with the COVID experience where, everyone went home, everybody's remote, there's no longer these collisions, these water cooler talks, if you will, which are always have thought to be negative things in a corporate environment, but that's a lot of where innovation can happen. Mm-hmm. And in our world, in the way that our business operates, we do have a lot of people working in a remote environment where we have either clinics that are at different locations. We have 9 different clinics now, 9 different centers. And then we have a centralized home office team, centralized HR and talent and culture team, centralized billing people that don't get to see each other every day. So it was really important to us to create an opportunity for these collisions to happen. So we do this a couple times a year. We try to do something fun that's great. So this year we went up to Tahoe, did a fun event at Tahoe Treetops. So thank you guys for having us. It was a great experience. And this is a ropes course, if you're not familiar. So, climbing ropes, zip lines, different obstacles, et cetera. Start at 1 story high to move 4 or 5 stories high. In some cases, I think 5 stories at the end. It was up there a bit. And I've done this a few times, so I was a little less cautious myself on this go. But it's a great challenge mentally to like get into a position where you're like, all right, I'm going to jump off this perfectly good platform and trust this cable to support me at 30, 40, 50 feet in the air. Where if that doesn't go well, it's not going to work out. So it takes a lot of trust. And for me, I wanted to expose our team to that because it's one of these things that I experienced, at 40 where I'm like, your heart rate raises a little bit. It challenges you internally. Like it really pumps like your thought process and your fear a little bit. When you have to make a decision or put some trust into something and really like think through a problem of how to solve these different obstacles, and anyone can do it, once you kind of learn to like confront that challenge. So for me, that was an important, fun team event that I thought was great to watch our team like try to figure out, ooh, how do I do this? Am I going to be able to make it? I'm not going to make it. And then someone else on the team say, hey, you got this. Like I just did it. Try it this way, and then, they make it across.
Well, this must be like one of the top 3 fears in the human brain. The famous show Limitless by Chris Helmsworth speaks to like the total health of the body. And if you're looking at the health of the brain, can it overcome struggles? And so the big obstacle that Chris has to deal with in that show is he climbs like the highest skyscraper in the world, like somewhere in Australia. It's like really, really high. And he has to do, I think, like a free fall or some kind of bungee jump. Somehow he jumps off. Or maybe he has to, gosh, I'm effing up the story. But he has to, I think, walk across a certain beam. Either way, he's looking, I know, something. But the point is battling the fear of height is, I think, a very important struggle that we all can participate in. And I loved it. My girls are ages 11, 10, and 7. And it was a phenomenal experience for a family because, my wife can tell you she had quite the difficulty overcoming that visceral reaction. You feel your heart rate elevate. You feel your body kind of clench up. And you have to breathe through it and take command. And for my little 7-year-old to kind of like, Daddy, I don't think I can do this. And then she does something in her brain that we wish every person, adult, man, child, can do, is overcome that fear and say, I can do this, and then achieve it. Like you have to find these struggles in life to get good. And if you don't, that's the whole point of the series. But going back to the series is if you don't find these struggles, your brain will suffer. I think that's the really key part here.
Yeah, and you do have to overcome. And I think in work and in business, it can be easy to get into a rut or into a routine where it's kind of same old. The people talking about the mailroom and going postal, like it's the same every day. And I think that's a real thing. And to get out and like liven yourself up again and wake yourself up in a different way. This is a fun. It's a fun way to do it. It's not really fun in the moment if you're afraid. You're afraid of the heights. But once you conquer it, like the joy and the self-confidence and all those things that come with it is pretty cool.
That's it. I think it's really an acute stress. Obviously, in our company, we talk a lot about the challenge of the right, appropriate stress on the body and the adaptation that comes from it. But from such an acute stress on the brain and all the amazing things that come from that, there's a plethora of it. And you could say it's the most healthful activity to attack a struggle that's within your bandwidth. And to that, I think our team loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah. So there's some great books on team. We always try to give some credit to some resources and stuff that we've utilized. So the Talent Code is a good version of that. Legacy is a great book. I think it's by James Kerr. It talks about the All Blacks out of New Zealand and the tremendous culture and the legacy that they've built of continued success, which is super interesting to me. When you look at business and you look at like sustainable high performance over long periods of time, is an extremely interesting concept to me. If you look at professional sports, which most people are familiar with, you could look at the Patriots, who had clearly like a 10 to 15 year run of a legacy. A dynasty is what they call it, right? Looking back to my younger era of the Niners and the Cowboys, the rise and fall of these organizations. Most recently, I think you watched him with the Golden State Warriors. They were clearly a dominant franchise for 3 to 5, 7 years, and then still had some success. And then now you're seeing the team start to break apart. We'll see what happens with their future, but it's probably not as bright and certainly different than it was. Mm-hmm. And this ability to sustain success for greater than 10 years is really, really interesting. Yep. Like the Talent Code and some of these books talk a lot about 10 years of work to have success. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting in business when you think about like, can you sustain success for greater than a 10-year run? Mm-hmm. And that's really hard to do.
And then what would you attribute to? If you're looking at the Antonio Spurs and you looked at Popovich,
same.
Like how how much of it is leadership? How much of it is the system? I know the Cowboys guy, he was a big systems guy,
Yeah,
right?
Jerry Jones, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes, or maybe it was Belichick as well.
Popovich is huge. Yeah, Belichick's huge.
Run a system very clean and find success with that. But if you change the leadership, can someone still run the system? Or maybe they can't.
Well, leadership, system, and people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in all these cases, the people ended up changing. Like, Belichick, say Tom Brady changed, so the system started to fail. Could any quarterback step in and do that? Like, clearly not. So there's still, and all of that together creates some sort of culture.
Yeah.
Some sort of interaction with these interactive systems together to make it happen. So it's super interesting. I just think it's very rare that we find organizations that really last, like Intel has been a long-lasting company, Coca-Cola, IBM, there's several that do, but there's way, way more that don't,
Yeah.
Much less make it 1 year, 2 years, making it 10 years. And then do you stay within your niche at 10 years or do you get acquired and then kind of get, it's just very interesting.
Well, I looked into this just recently because the stat that I had heard that scared the snot out of me was that 4 out of 5 businesses will fail within 5 years, and another 4 of the 5 will fail in the next. So you're talking 20% survive, and then another 20% of that survives. So it's a pretty low success rate after a decade. When I looked into that with the small business research out there, it's not quite as grim. It's about 30 to 40% will survive the 5-year mark, and then of those who survive that 5-year mark, about half will survive the next 5 years. Now, survive maybe is I think it's pretty
different than thrive.
Correct, right. So those that can grow, like say 20% year over year and sustain that growth, well, that's quite special. And I think that's what speaks to really elite culture, which, like you said, having, I felt so blessed with the team event of all of our teammates that were there that tried really hard, that competed in the games at the park, that thrived with the struggle of checking out the heights of being 150 feet up on a pine tree with a little cable connecting them to safety. I felt so blessed and humbled to have such a great camaraderie of teammates around us that are all striving to be excellent and can do it day in and day out. To your speaking of stamina.
Yeah. No, it was super fun and super great. Just seeing them come together, and the group is incredibly strong. I think that's one thing that always strikes us. We're fortunate to be in a fitness industry and a health industry, but many of you have been in those environments where not everybody delivering the care is healthy, and this group is exceptionally overall healthy and in control of their body and their mind and what they do, and it's really, really cool. It's a good group of coaches to go out there and influence people. That's for sure. They live the standards.
Well, I think many of our clinicians are ex college athletes at a very elite level. What's interesting is the people like myself. I didn't play a college sport, but I thrive in the fitness realm, and I thrive in the martial art realm. And I would say to every person that didn't play a sport at a great level in college, are they living the life of a great high movement person? So like our billing person, she's Jess. She's like phenomenal. She's like a barrel horse racer, and she thrives in the outdoors. And I know our talent culture. She loves to be on a paddleboard and making her way across the water. I think it's really about like, what are you currently doing? I think a lot of us like to rest on our laurels of what we did yesteryear. What are you currently doing with your body?
Right.
Is it fishing and hiking? Is it playing basketball intramurals? Is it being more engaged in gym fitness or rock climbing fitness? And I think I've learned to care more about what are you currently doing rather than, oh yeah, back then I was awesome. You should have seen me.
Right. Totally. No, I think it's a great point. Super good. So yeah, I think from a team standpoint, it's great to see them come together. The books, Talent Code, Legacy. The other one I would say is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I thought was a great book that we were advised by a consultant in the more recent years, and it's a really interesting way to look at a team. It talks about roles and levels of team. You have your first team, and then your second team, and I think there's some interesting concepts in there that are worth a look.
And communication reigns king. When you're talking about good teamwork and all the issues that can come about if you have great, candid, but I would say honest, but also that you care for the other person. That's candid candor. Is that?
Well, debate is the big thing that comes up over and over again. Is you have to have healthy debate.
Yes.
So you have to have and respect for both sides and healthy debate where you can come to the table and say, hey, this is how I feel and this is why I think it should be this way, and someone else to share something else and then actually debate that out. That's what makes for great decision making. That's why you can't live in a silo or.
I mean, the phrase is kind candor. That's what I was thinking of. And that's exactly, Nico and I had a great conversation at the park. We had a healthy debate. And I wanted to hear his side out. He wanted to hear my side out. And we knew that for us to, we were both coming very passionately at a particular idea. And I loved it that he and I routinely come together with honesty, but also diligence of saying, I'm hearing you and I'm going to keep looking at this because I love the debate. And that's it.
Well, that's what drives thinking, right? That's what drives like success. If it's just easy, right? If everything's easy and it's just straightforward, then it's probably not that good. So, all right. Next idea we wanted to discuss with you is the Chevron Doctrine. So this is a pretty big move. So a little bit of history here. The Chevron Doctrine was in 1985, I believe, is when it was first to the Supreme Court, and it was the Chevron Corporation against some other group. Essentially, that led towards that decision at that time led towards agencies having the last say or the final say in decision making or process or rules and regulations. And the concept at the time in 1985 was that it's better for these agencies to become experts or hire experts to look at a situation, look at a scenario, look at what's best for the people, what's best for the environment, et cetera, and then make a decision on behalf of the people. So at that time, that made a lot of sense and has reigned for 40 years. And now the Supreme Court has now overturned that to say that it should no longer, this power should no longer rest in the agencies. And I think we've seen that for the last several years. A lot of agencies are falling under a strong debate and maybe disposition as to is that the best thing for our country, for our people, for the people, et cetera. So they've overruled this now and said that no, the jurisdiction will now rest in the courts. So I think this is going to create quite a court backup and challenging time for them. But what's interesting here is if you think about how like we get things done in this country, depending on what level you're getting it done at, if you want something to change, you almost have to you basically have to have a lobbyist, go to the politicians, probably invest in a campaign or support a campaign or a politician to some degree, at least have a lobbyist show some support for their agendas and support them in their process, and then they hopefully come back and support you in the process, and then they appoint people to these agencies that make decisions and make things happen. That's kind of it's become in general. I know it's a hasty generalization, but there's a lot of truth in that statement as well as that kind of how things come around. So to remove that, to say like, hey, we're no longer your agency or the agency you support or the person you appoint to run the agency is no longer going to have the power to make all these decisions. Now it's going to come back to the court, and an individual person, such as myself, could go to a court and have a case against an agency or against another entity and have the judge hear it out and make a decision that might be fair and just in that environment, in that state, in that region, at that time. That is all relevant.
We're all playing the game of life. Specifically, we're playing it in the West, and more specifically, it's the United States. And the game just changed. And everyone listening should care intensely about what this is, because right now you're playing with certain rules. Your insurance has rules. How the hospital treats you has rules. What can and cannot be administered to you has rules. What are the procedures that you're allowed to do given this situation? You have rules that should be challenged. And now we actually have a format that you don't have to do what the Human Health Services said. This is the only thing that we support. Well, now we're going to buck that trend. This is what Medicare says they do. This is what my Blue Shield or Blue Cross says. We're about to buck all of that trend, and we now have a format to do that.
Yeah, we have a platform finally to do it, which is going to be really, really interesting to see how this unfolds. But if you guys aren't aware, the healthcare system is terribly broken. I know everyone says that, but maybe people don't really understand what that means. What it means to us is that insurance controls the system. So in other words, insurance controls your health. There's no clearer way to state it.
Yeah.
Your insurance controls your health 100%. What doctor you can go to, what that doctor can give you, how much time they spend with you, what if you end up having surgery, where that's located at. All of those decisions are based off of insurance. They're not based off of best practice. Now, best practice is hopefully accounted for and still part of the plan, but anyone talking in real truth will tell you that that's not exactly what happens. It's not best practice. It's governed by insurance. So so you know who controls insurance. Every insurance carrier bases their contract, their agreement with doctors, with physician groups, et cetera, with hospitals. They base those agreements off of Medicare. So the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services, CMS, is one of these agencies that will now be challenged heavily on their rules and regulations, because whatever they say go, whatever they're willing to pay for, whatever they're not willing to pay for, whatever they're supporting, anything, whatever they do, the rest of the groups, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, United, Aetna, you name it, those guys fall right behind, and they just absorb. Even if you do the contract, they say relative to Medicare fee schedule. Every contract we have with insurance companies is relative to the Medicare fee schedule.
Yeah, we have a format now to buck this. I can't tell you how many times we get asked this of people with an HMO like Kaiser, or people with a PPO like Blue Shield, or like my dad, Medicare. I was talking with my dad while we were walking, doing some fishing over the weekend, and I was telling him about this doctrine. And I said, "This is how it impacts you, Pops. I can't treat you unless you see a doctor first as a Medicare patient. You can't just come and give me $100 and say, 'Help me, son. I need help right now today for my back.' I can't accept that $100 just being you, your age, and the fact that you've assigned your benefits to Medicare." And that's just one of the litany of rules that he doesn't even know that that's impacted him. But every therapist knows this impacts them, because we're threatened and say, if you do this, you can get fined $50,000.
Yep.
But the consumer has no idea that they're a part of this bigger game. And that doesn't really make that much sense for the individual. It might make sense for that agency. That's how they run their budget. That's how they run their system.
Yep. I can't believe this rule. It's a great one to talk about, because it's absolutely insane. So if you're of Medicare age, 65 or older, even though there's direct access in your state, like here in California and in so many other states, like to come to physical therapy is a very specific example. If you have Medicare and so you've used all your benefits, or the place you go to doesn't accept Medicare as a viable option, it's actually illegal for you to pay cash for those services if it's a healthcare provider. Now, if I was a massage therapist, or if I was a personal trainer, or if I was a stretch lab or something like that, no problem. You can go in and pay cash for that. But if you wanted to go to a healthcare provider like a PT or a chiro and just pay cash and you're Medicare eligible, it's actually illegal for you to do that unless you sign over your rights via a special form you have to fill out. And that's like, people are like, well, I won't use the insurance. I'll just pay cash, which would make sense. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. You pay your cash wherever you want to pay it. Mm-hmm. Do whatever you want to do with your cash. It's your money. And then they say, no, you're not allowed to pay that person, even if we have a contract or not.
Yeah. Now, in the free world, someone might say, well, you don't have to be part of Medicare. Like, yeah, you do. You do have to. It's the only way for you to actually exist in the US of A is to, if you're at that age, to be part of the Medicare system. They kind of force you. There's no other way around it. So there's really not as much freedom as you might think until now we actually have something in place that we can challenge that, because it doesn't make good sense. It's not smart with money. It's not smart to not allow that person to do individually what they think is best for their health. You've kind of like taken that autonomy right out of the individual's hands, which I'd say is pretty much against the value system of this country.
It forces you back into a more expensive model. Let's go see a doctor first. Let's have the doctor refer you to here. And then now you've seen two providers as opposed to one, which is great if it's necessary, but the reality is it's usually not in most cases. You
you've backlogged the whole system. You create like a tight spot, which is, I'd say, a lot of doctors are frustrated by their caseload. They just can't. There's too few doctors, possibly because of these problems, but we have a funnel issue.
Yeah, what I'd say about that too, I think this is really important to understand, because people that aren't familiar with how the healthcare business works will feel like a doctor or any kind of care provider is really short. They're not very personable. They're not in the room very long. Now, whether they're short and personable is a different problem, but if they're not in the room very long and that bothers you, or they're really busy and they just feel like they're running through you, that's an insurance issue. All right? So think about this, especially if you operate in a state like California, which is so highly regulated. So if you're running a business, you have to make enough money to cover the expenses of the business at the very least. So if you're making income off of seeing a patient, but that income is fixed, if Medicare says we're only going to pay you this much money no matter what you do with that patient, this is the amount of money you're going to get paid. So then you basically take that's called your fee for service, and that's called your revenue per visit, if you will. So how many visits in a day can I now see? So let's say I can see 20 in a day, and each visit pays me $100. Well, that's $2,000 of income for that day. And then I have for an office staff, and I have a billing person, and billing's not easy because insurance makes it complicated. So I have to have like 4 billing people to get one claim. It's insanity. And then you have to have everything else. You have to have your maintenance, janitorial, all of your other things, HR, insurance, all the other expenses. So okay, well now $2,000 isn't enough to cover all that. So I need to be $4,000. So the only way that I can make up for that, I can't charge more money for quality. All I can do is double the amount of patients I see in a day. So now I make myself stretch thin. So I have to spend less time with the patient. And then the extreme version of that is like, I'll hire somebody to help me see the patient. So then I'm going to hire a physician's assistant, or in PT, we'll hire a PT assistant, would be the strategy. You pay them a little bit less, and they see a big volume of people. So now you're seeing all these volume of people, but you're not spending any time or getting very much quality with them. And that nature of that relationship then drives the quality of healthcare down and makes the physicians less attentive during the sessions, which is, and not just physicians, but any healthcare provider, less attentive during the session. And that is the problem with healthcare, is you have people that go into healthcare that are super passionate, like myself and Russ, to get in and do great things for people. And they just get burned down because they just get frustrated. Like, I can't make my own living at home and put food on the table and really care for these patients. It's not working. The only thing I can do is double the amount of patients I see, which means obviously I have to care less. Not that I do internally, but that's just the nature of the beast, in order so I can take care of my own family. On that note, like, just so you can see the problem that we face, like especially in California, this last year, Newsom passed. Well, this was great. On the same day, he vetoed a rule that would allow patients to get more visits in physical therapy without requiring authorization. So we've been pushing to get 12 visits authorized without requiring further authorization, because if you came in for a visit or two and you need a couple more, and that shouldn't be a big deal. But there's some insurance companies that make that very difficult. So they say, no, you're only going to come once, you're only going to come 5 times, you can only come 10 times. So they're going to make a state regulation to say, hey, let's make it 12. So if you're going to regulate, let's regulate at least in the favor of the patient. He vetoed that on his desk. It passed the House and the Senate, and he vetoed it on his desk. And at the same time, he passed a law that said anyone associated with healthcare has to have an increase in their minimum wage, starting up to like $22 an hour, moving to $24, moving to $28 an hour within the next couple of years. Doesn't matter if you're the janitor or if you're the physician. You have to make at least that much money. So at the same time, you say, I have to pay the everybody involved in the delivery of care more, but I'm going to do nothing to improve the reimbursement of that care, and I'm going to let Medicare and all the insurance companies still pay the minimum. So what does that do to healthcare then?
Yeah, it's single-handedly trying to crush small business. The only people that can weather that storm would be the UC Davis, the Kaisers, the Sutters, all of the hospital systems that manage their outpatient clinics, which they care very little about, because it must be an absolute drop in their revenue bucket.
The only way that works, though, is because they're getting grants and funding from tax dollars from another venue.
Yeah, and that whole arm of the company probably loses money, which they just throw to the wind and stock it up to losses in their nonprofit.
Exactly.
It's a horrible maze that the small business person that's striving for excellence to make a difference in this world has to fight an uphill battle because of that.
And this is why you see physicians leaving private practice. Physicians are more and more moving towards large groups, which I think is a good strategy for the most part, given the regulations that we have. Although it's not the right decision for them to really thrive and be the best. Because if they have a good idea and a way of delivering care that's better, it's almost impossible for them to generate enough revenue to pay for the R&D to make that idea happen, to make better service, to make it smoother, to make it more efficient. It's almost impossible. So they get thrown into a group, and then in that group, they just get told, hey, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. And then people just lose their passion, motivation, and interest, and you start to see this like dwindling quality of care.
I mean, if I'm going to buy shoes, then if I spend $20 on shoes versus $100, I'm going to anticipate that the $100 shoes are going to be better made with better materials and probably hold stronger than the $20
They would
shoes.
last longer, hopefully maybe more comfortable maybe.
Yeah, we could probably argue like maybe the $100 shoes have a lot more marketing. Maybe they have a lot more pizzazz. But we're going to at least see a difference in what it costs me to buy shoes and the quality that I get. In medicine, the whole system is formatting that, oh, did you see the doctor? Did you see the PT? Was the box checked? Because they're pretending that if you take 1,000 physical therapists and 1,000 physician assistants and 1,000 orthopedists, that they're all going to be the exact same and give you exactly the same service. And who has it ever found that to be the case? That if you saw 5 people, it's exactly the same experience across all systems? No, because we're human and we're different. And we have different opinions on what you should do for your health. And so people typically do this. Oh, I talk with a friend, a coworker, a buddy of mine.
Right. Yep.
And then this person is the best. So we all intuitively think of every parent out there listening. When your kid gets hurt, do you just like go and first on the Google search, I pick that one? Absolutely not. We're going to find the best. But the system is not built for you to find the best because it doesn't honor the best. That's the single threat here, is that the majority of this industry does not honor what is great service. And if it doesn't honor it, it's going to make it very hard for you to find great service.
Yeah, it doesn't honor excellence in that form. So if you've complained about healthcare and you've bitched about it and you've been on that side of the equation of this, that, and the other, and it's just difficult to blah, 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 you hate insurance companies, well, now's your time. Now with this new ruling, there is going to be probably an onslaught of cases that come into the courts against these federal agencies in an effort to start to decrease regulations and start to rewrite the regulations. I think there still needs to be regulations and guidance and rules for sure. We can't have the complete Wild West here. There has to be some ethics, which I believe healthcare providers have. The question will be that the businesses can hold them, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens here. I think the courts will get very overwhelmed, but there's finally the opportunity. The stage is now set where healthcare can be transformed in the way that it should. I mean, it's in every way, it's 20 years behind what every other business that's not it's the most regulated thing we have in the country.
I think a fascinating part to our business is how many people choose us and do our self-pay rate. They recognize, all right, so you guys charge $98 per evaluation and $98 per session. They look at the mass of insurance and the makeup of hospital care and the makeup of the system, and they look at, well, I care a lot about my health, and I've heard great things from you, and I want to come see you, Sydney, I want to come see you, Nico. Here's my hard-earned money. Help me right now. I think it's a really kind of fun measure to look at the success of an organization, at least in healthcare, to say what portion of people find you and just pay outside the system. And it's kind of like a fun look because of authorization, because of eligibility, because of I have a deductible I don't really care about, or I have an HMO that forces me to see this group. And it's a interesting little stat.
Yeah, it is. We wish they wouldn't have to. I mean, we do contract with insurance companies for good reason because we want to make it affordable. That's the whole idea behind our payment system is that we don't want it to be so expensive that someone can't bring their kid in to get the best care possible. They can't get the right plan. We don't want to make it an unaffordable option. So it is quite reasonable when you look at the market. But that's almost unreasonable if a person's paying, if an employee is paying $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month for healthcare, and then their insurance company is saying, well, no, you only get this level. So then they have to pay an additional $100 a session to come see us. That does suck, and I feel for them that it sucks, but it is what it is. But maybe now is the time that changes. Yeah,
and why authorization matters, going back to the authorization point, when you need authorization, that usually means you have to do some additional hoops. You have to see this person, which means you have to get in another line and wait to see a doctor or wait for a doctor to refer out something, which now you take your severe back pain, you're crippled, you can't move, you want to know what to do, you have to get in line that might take several weeks before you to kind of get additional authorization or to be seen even once. And it creates a huge jamming of efficient care.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's it. And if that's your perspective, is socialized medicine is the way to go, and let's make it so everybody's equal and it's easy access. that's the problem is that you don't have enough providers, and you can just go to any other place like Canada and look and ask them how they like their healthcare.
Oh, I've got a great one. Because you read the reports in any kind of mainstream media, and it'll show like, oh, United States is way low on healthcare. So I've got a patient who is not from the United States. She has a really wonderfully thick accent, and she tore her ACL. So she came to me, and because of a friend of a friend. So she came to me and she says, well, I'm going to go back home and get my surgery back at home because the country will just pay for my surgery, no problem. I said, oh, great. Well, whenever you make it back to the United States, come see me and I'll help you out after your ACL reconstruction. 3 weeks later, I saw her. Like, oh, you're back. I didn't think to get you back so quick. She goes, well, I decided to have it done here. Because I looked at back home and it was going to take me 3 months to get the surgery back at home. But my surgeon here, who's a phenomenal surgeon in Roseville, was able to see me in 2.5 weeks. Right. Like, great. And it was a great ACL reconstruction done by Dr. Zamanovich. And she came see me, within 10 days later. She's doing fantastic. But that's a great example of like what they thought was socialized medicine would be a really, really good thing. She actually weighed it right in the moment, said, I have to wait for 3 months versus I'm already paying for, my healthcare right now. I can have Dr. Z do it. I'm just going to get it done and see Russ within a few days.
And I assume that's like every all I's dotted, T's crossed, I'm ready to go, scheduled 3 months from now. And then note that can get pushed for any reason that's more urgent than that surgery, right? Mm-hmm. So if you have, a heart condition or something, or you have like an intestinal bleed or something where you need immediate attention, it's great. It's similar to our system. Mm-hmm. Which if you need those things, you get right in immediately. Yeah. And if we have to save your life, there's no charge.
Yeah, yeah.
We have the same system.
Yeah.
But there's a premium system that you pay into your insurance companies to get more elective things covered and get some more less life-threatening things covered.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as the discussion continues to weigh on the direction of like what's the best healthcare and what's the best for people. And
because you also realize that timeliness is a big part of healthcare. It's not just, can you see the right person that diagnoses you correctly and then what to do, but when can you get it done? And can someone see you right now? Can they help you right now?
Yeah. I would say just as a personal opinion is I think that a lot of the regulation we see in healthcare that limits physicians and doctors to be the greatest and do what they do is one of the reasons that we've fallen from the top healthcare place in the world. We're not thought of as a great healthcare operation in the United States compared to other countries. Like there's other places that are doing it much better than us and have much better outcomes. And I don't think that's because we have poor doctors, poor physicians, or any of that. That's just because the regulation is such that there's no way for them to actually invest the time and share their knowledge in an effective way with the end user because the system is so regulated and broken.
Yeah. Well, it is. We quickly learn, with the patients that I see, of those that value their health more. They frankly just put more of their personal finance into it. Whether it's creating opportunities for vacations that allow them to be really active, and then going to the supermarket and buying the meat and protein and milk and eggs and the fruits and vegetables that are the healthiest version of that food. And then they come and choose a physical therapist when their knee is injured. That's someone that they feel is of high value, of high excellence in what we do. So the people who value their health, they spend their resources on it. And it's evident. It is. It's very evident. And those who are looking for I don't want to say a handout like a negative thing, but those who are looking to not do the extra, you'll suffer. You'll suffer more than you know. Sadly, that's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, I think I heard somebody say this the other day that I thought was a really interesting way to look at it, is that with healthcare, you either will pay for it now or you'll pay for it later. That was an interesting way to look at things, that the concept here is that you're going to pay for your healthcare insurance regardless from now to the end, But if you take care of your body now and you invest now, these extra dollars in health, wellness, fitness, weight loss, take care of your body in your younger middle years, that's going to reduce your healthcare cost, in your retirement years. You're going to be healthier, live a more vibrant life, have less risk of disease, less risk of illness, et cetera, if you make a little investment into your body now. If you don't make that investment now, and you think everything's great, well, then you're going to pay for it at the end because you're probably going to really, have much more risk for more decrepit disease, disability, and these things that make it really difficult for you to both pay more and obviously for you to have a less quality of life, which is what it comes down to.
I'd also say the more delayed you put that energy, the more painful it gets too. There seems to be this thing that the further you push it down the line, there's a lot more pain the body can endure, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is a trend, just to share with you guys, that we see very, very often being in a lot of gym environments and gym scenarios. It's really interesting to watch the fitness industry. And we have different gyms that focus on different age populations. So it's really interesting to watch the delivery of training and fitness to these different age groups. But we have a couple gyms that really cater to folks that they didn't really intend to cater to folks that were older, not older meaning over 50, but they're really not doing CrossFit stuff that really attracts people that are 20, 30 years old, right? And then no one goes after the people that are 35 to 45 because you're just too busy with life. You're raising kids and you're working in your job and you're busting your ass, and just going to the gym is just a tough thing to do, right? Not to say you shouldn't do it, but it's just a tough thing to do. But it's really interesting to watch as people hit this kind of 50-year-old mark, or certainly 55, there's this awakening that they go through. And it's kind of like this oh shit moment, where they're like, okay, I'm getting to a point where I'm moving towards retirement, and I had visions of my retirement. I wanted to travel, or I wanted to do these different things, pickleball, tennis, golf, whatever it may be. And you're starting to look at yourself and be like, man, I've been busting my tail for 30 years or 20 years doing certain things that weren't the best choices. And they're trying to rewrite that ship with 5 or 10 years, kind of to go till they hit 60, 65. So it's really interesting to watch. But these people are more affluent because they've worked hard and they have a financial means now. They have time, so they have a little more flexibility in their job where they've become more in a leadership role. Maybe they have a little more time flexibility. So with those two things, they can now invest in this idea of training. But our argument would be, it's never too late. But that's a really difficult place to start from.
Yep.
Versus if you could do some things at 30 to set yourself up into your 40s and 50s, have a lot more active success.
Yeah, I mean, the next hardest day is tomorrow, and our hormones have a slow decline, our bone health has a slow decline, our cartilage health has a slow decline. So don't wait.
Yeah, Debbie Downer for sure. Yeah. It's, the stats aren't good. We have tremendous stats on bone density, and we all hit a peak at the age of 30. And then what's most important about that stat, and most of these numbers share the same type of trajectory, is we see a peak at the age of 30. That's the absolute high. And then you see this trajectory of a downward fall. And what's really important when we look at health and longevity is the rate at which you fall. All right, so we all can get to a certain peak, some higher than others, but you can raise that peak up until the age of about 30, it looks like, specifically with bone density, but I would probably say it's very similar for many other variables. So you get to a peak at 30, which we all probably felt. and then now you can stay there. You can stay at a plateau for a very, very long period of time, which hopefully some of us felt for a while. And then you start to see this decline, and it starts to come down. And the rate of slope of that line is what this conversation is about, as far as...
I know. I think one of the words I try and teach a lot of people about, especially those in their 50s, is the beautiful word sarcopenia.
Yeah.
And I talked with my wife a little bit about hey, whatever muscle you have, you actually have to work just a touch harder this next year to keep it. And then the following year, you have to work a little harder still. That's the damnedest thing. Yep. That now life is requiring you to work actually a little bit harder year over year. That rather than not, because of a muscle loss.
Well, you talk about muscle being a 30 to 45 day turnover period, right?
Yeah, your turnover is less. So all cells of your muscles will turn over in 45 days. Every muscle cell will be a different cell. You'll have a planned cellular death of every muscle cell you have. And in 6 weeks, they'll all be new cells. But that turnover rate declines. So yeah, like you said, from maybe once you kind of hit your peak growth, maybe you're 17, 18, all the way to 30, fairly steady. 30 to 40, it can be steady if you put some work in. 40 to 50 also can be steady if you put work in. And then right when you hit in your early to mid 50s, now there's a planned rate loss. You are rebuilding at a lesser of a rate, which means if you just did what you normally do, like a light moving person, you'll lose about 1 to 2% of muscle every year. And that's why when we die, we just have a lot less muscle. So what's your rate? How much work are you doing right now that determines your loss rate?
Yeah, I love this stuff. I have a course out there on this topic that's available for people to take and learn from. But what's amazing is that even though that's true, your impact on those cells by doing some sort of resistance training or some sort of movement is almost equivalent to what we see when you're younger. So if you challenge the cells and you load them and you do certain things to them, and if you have the right nutrition, protein support to fuel them, you can actually have the cells themselves are just as effective as they were back in the day.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's the amazing part. So it's very much a use it or lose it system. Now, you will have this little bit of decline like Russ was indicating where you might drop it, but you probably won't even notice that if you keep what you have at a reasonable level.
And then it really comes down to now, like, well, what activities should we be doing? You know, I think there's a lot of fascination because everyone got the fancy watches, which you can see I'm all for because of my Casio that costs $25.
Yeah.
But all these watches tell you your steps. It's like, oh, I hit 8,000 steps. I'm doing pretty good. I did 15,000 steps. I'm pretty good. The truth of it is walking actually isn't that hard. We know this is because for, say, a very weak person that's very that just got injured, maybe just had a knee replacement, hip replacement, it's very hard for that person. If you just got your whole joint replaced in your hip, it's very hard to stand up from the bed. So you're sitting in the bed, to stand up feels like, oh my gosh, I just did that. I can't believe I just stood. That took all of my effort. And then you take a step, and you're like, oh, that's not that hard. And then with a new hip, you could walk like 300 feet. Not that hard. With a brand new joint that the doctor just reconstructed. The point is, walking is not hard. It's not that taxing on your muscle system to walk.
No.
So I'd say that's like the bare minimum of like letting your heart rate come up 10 beats. But to keep the muscles in your body, you have to engage in activity that takes your joints through a broad range of motion. Think like a squat and a lunge and a push-up or a plank or moving some weight overhead. Or carrying something, getting on a low position, lifting it, and then walking upstairs with said weight. So you have to do things that actually feel hard. We can agree, walking's not hard. We have to do hard things for our joints and our muscles. And if you make that muscle burn and feel tired, you probably did a fantastic job at working your body in that moment. But without game to hunt and without farmland to farm and without a house to build, we need to find other things to move our body, or else it will degrade. That's how the body works. You are declining as we speak. Doomsday.
Yeah, sounds great.
Super fearmonger.
It's tough when you say things like that. Like the next day is the hardest day. Like, oh, the only easy day was yesterday. That one seal line. Oh my gosh, that's like, it's painful. Because you're like, man, I worked my ass off yesterday. But doesn't count for very long. It's not going to give me a very long runway here.
Yeah, you kind of want to ask, like, did I make it? Did I cross the finish line? Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Still more to go.
And that's why you have to like. I mean, when we try to find people exercise programs, work people on fitness, it has to be something that you enjoy doing. It has to be like a passion or part of like
it's the only thing that sustains it.
Who you are. Yeah. If you're doing something you hate, like kudos for you. Congratulations. I doubt it will be sustainable. If you can do it, phenomenal. But find something that you enjoy doing.
Oh,
yeah. Whether it be, that's why we're not really particular, whether you get outside or like you like paddleboard.
Yeah, what's
or like
better,
to rock
Pilates
climb.
or yoga? Or should I throw the kettlebell around, or can I do the barbell too? Which one's the best?
Yeah. Movement is the best.
Movement's the best.
Do something, have some load, get your heart rate up, get some sun, eat healthy, sleep. That's the deal.
That's it.
But so keep that in mind. Like, find something fun, stay active. You don't have to go nuts, but once in a while throw in some lunges, do some squats down to a chair, lift something overhead, like Russ said. Those are huge, huge factors. I don't know how we got that to so much to do with the Chevron Doctrine, but other than the fact that we can't do that if insurance regulates us.
Yes, exactly.
That's the problem.
That's the.
I literally watched them do the anti of that over the last 7 months with my father-in-law. Like, he literally was in the hospital for 3 weeks just recently because his knee was infected, which was misdiagnosed and not identified, which is unbelievable. But then I watched them sit him in a room and not get him up for three more weeks after they did more surgery. No vitamin D, no sunlight. The food is terrible. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
To watch the healthcare, the audacity of the healthcare system to think that we're going to save you.
Yes.
We're going to hook you up to all of these little cords, run these fluids through you, and we're going to save you and recreate you.
Yes.
It's so, is that necessary for somebody at the right time? Absolutely.
Yes.
And it's absolutely unbelievable what we can do.
Well, any nurse that works in a busy hospital will tell you this, and I worked right next to him for years, so I know this implicitly true. If you ask what's going to be the make or breaker for this person at this moment, say they almost died, but they survived, what's going to make or break that person right now in the hospital? And they're going to say the loved ones. If they have loved ones showing up with them, then they have a great chance of making it. Because what do loved ones do? They take it, they put them in the wheelchair, they take them outside. They make sure that they're eating their food. They're making sure that their nutrition is complete. They're making sure that, oh, the PT just came in and did like a few steps with them, and then the PT left. Great. Can I do that again in like an hour? Of course you can. So the loved ones actually start engaging of what movement and health really look like. The medical system,
that's being on a family. That's what it is, to be in a family.
To be on a good team.
Yeah.
To be on a good team. That's what it is. The hospital just saved their life with the right drugs and the right operation, but it's the team that allows you to perform and actually excel in life. And that's the best way of looking at our modern day healthcare. Will hopefully save your life when you need it, but it's not going to help you excel in anything. It's not that type of model, because excellence is dependent on what you value. Do you like basketball or fishing? Do you like hiking? Do you like strength training? And so it's up to your value system of really like what to do with it. But look at the healthcare system. It's going to save you if you fall.
Yeah, and I think that will stay consistent as these regulations change and modify. I don't think that we'll see it become a performance model.
No,
it's not really.
Yeah.
It should do what it's doing, which is a life-saving strategy, and that's what you should think of with healthcare. That's really what it probably should be regulated too. Is like, let's be a life-saving strategy and a last-ditch effort, but not this model of like, how do I improve my health?
Yeah,
Right. Yes, that's helpful for, like, you see Kaiser do this all the time, all this health improvement stuff, eat well, they drive all this information in people's direction, which is great. It's the right thing to do, but they're doing it because it reduces their cost. Because if you don't get sick, then it doesn't cost them any money. So since they own the whole circle, they love it.
Yeah.
Stay healthy, stay away from us, do the right things. That's why they preach it so much. And I think that medicine should stay as medicine. It should not going to be performance improvement or human performance. I think something that's going to be its own space.
Completely.
And it shouldn't be something we rely on insurance to pay for, that's for sure. Because when we do that, it just drives off the costs at ridiculous levels, which is the biggest problem we face, is that the cost is so tremendous for the value that you get because the model is so regulated and dysfunctional. I think that's everybody's biggest complaint.
Well, speaking of value, we're hopefully now going to be valuing or helping bring value to a new community.
Yeah, no, this is exciting. So we launched in Las Vegas, which has been super. We've got a doctor friend there that we've known a long time here that's been out there and invited us to come out and join, which is how all of our growth happens, is through basically invitation and request. So that's extremely exciting. But Vegas is a super exciting community to step into. We have such a growth there in the sports and in the activities and in the community outside. I mean, everybody's gone to Vegas and seen the Strip. That's kind of part of like growing up at some point. I feel like you got to go. I haven't met two people that have never been to the Strip at this point. But if you get outside of the Strip, we're actually away on the west side in the Summerlin area. It's a beautiful area, very, very suburban, and really great golf courses, great mountain climbing, like really cool area to live and thrive. The desert's always a good healing environment as well, so it's kind of good. I have a desert bias. I love the desert, so hopefully that has some impact.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. I think it's interesting. 20 years ago, I always just thought of Vegas as Vice City, and but it's now quite the suburb, like you said. And what's exciting about suburbs is I think of all the sports and athletics and youth that are playing community ball in some way, and that gets so exciting because, as we know, when people engage in sport activity, they kind of need what we do. So it's so exciting to have potential of growth there, and we got a new team member there that's ready to deliver. It's really awesome.
Yeah, super solid. Jacob's fantastic, and really a guy to see. Has really been impressive having him come on to the team. We've had some great when we looked at Vegas as an option and did some review and market analysis and met with many other providers. The welcoming that we're getting from the community, from the healthcare providers, is really tremendous in the form that there's nothing like what we're doing there, which isn't that rare. We hear that a lot, but I was a little surprised at a city that size and as as new as it is in the way that it's growing in modernness, that there's not some providers that are pushing the envelope a little bit to do something a little bit better, do something more high performance like we strive for. So I'm super excited to bring this to the community in a way that can be beneficial. Yeah. That's always a hesitation for us. Is like, well, is there already somebody there who dominates this space and, who already works with these people? And the overwhelming response has been there isn't. And so we're excited to be able to bring it and raise the bar for the community.
As you say that, I was thinking, when we started this business 10 years ago, I remember specifically there was a WebPT report that said that physical therapy clinics in gyms represented 0.1% of the entire industry of physical therapy. And that was very exciting to you and I back then, that told us that we're entering a space that's not done. Out of the 100,000 clinics, there's like less than 100 of these in the nation. And so starting something a bit fresh and new meant that we need to build a model that was fresh and new. And the most recent WebPT report said that 0.1% has now increased to 3%. So quite a huge increase from 0.1 to 3, but still overall really not that popular by any means. So going into a huge suburban market filled with 1 million plus people, knowing that really only 3% of the landscape does things like we do is very exciting.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, like being in the gym, the reason why that's important to us and being in the gym is that's where people are active. So if active people want to get better, this is a great way to meet them, introduce them, and give them something that they can integrate right into their life. That's the hardest part about our job is to meet somebody and then give them this whole prescription of like life things to improve, like exercises to do or whatever it might be, and then have them go home and try to do it at home. They don't have the equipment and resources. If someone's already committed to going to the gym, they're there, they remember, they want to move better, they want to move healthy, they're obviously investing in that. To be able to come and work with them and say, hey, let's make a few of these modifications, let's add a few things here. It's just really, really good for that population. For those that aren't in the gym, it's also great because they come in, they see the gym, they get exposed to some of these ways to load their body and see some growth and see some change. Maybe that stimulates them to take a step into their fitness and do something more, whether it's in the gym or outside activity or whatever it is, but they find that passion, something they want to do. We see that happen a lot where it creates a really motivating, less like medical environment. And that's really, really, really well received by our patient population.
Well, I'd say many people, a lot of patients I've talked to, no one really kind of sees himself, unless they're currently a member of a gym, they don't really see themselves as, oh, I'm definitely a gym goer. It's not. Yeah. Most people don't see that in their own identity. But all these boutique gyms, you'd be amazed at what the average member, looks like. They are a fisherman, they are a professional lawyer, they are a mom of 3 kids. They're really just like regular people engaging in fitness. Whereas if you go to your 24-hour or big box gym, you'll see a lot of the bodybuilders with really kind of like skimpy little tank tops and skimpy little things on and getting a massive muscle pump and looking gargantuan in a lot of ways. That's the boutique gym is not that. These people don't go there. The people who go to these smaller gyms in Vegas, it's Nevada Fit, owned by a guy named Royce, who's really passionate about delivering fitness to the everyday person. They love, typically, a lot of the partners that we align with, they love their sports and their youth athletes, and they also love the adult that really wants to reclaim what fitness should be and what it should look like. And it's definitely, I think, different than what most people think of. And bringing patients into this space and showcasing what fitness can look like is a really fresh take on it.
Yeah, it's super fun. Speaking of fun, you've said fishing like 4 times today.
Oh yes, guys. Because my dad's 77. And he and I both vowed that he needs to move more. Yeah. And fishing is something he can do.
It's a vehicle.
So I've been fishing with him, and it's not really my cup of tea because it's not as movement oriented. But it's not to say I don't enjoy it. I love being outside in the early morning sun and by running water. I think it's really wonderful. I'm not good. I can't catch anything. I know very little. But the experience...
That's why it's called fishing, not catching, though. It's very important. It's a very important differentiator.
Well, that explains it. Then I'm quite good.
It's like in basketball, I call it shooting, then I would call it making. It's the attempt. And if you're out there to catch especially if you're fly fishing, if you're out there to catch fish,
Well, I commend my dad.
You're an all-star.
I commend my dad. He's moving. The other day we probably walked like a total of a mile up and down the shore. And that was his activity, and I'm doing that with him because I love hanging out with him. But to each their own. Find your own thing, and I say that just because we just got done doing it last weekend.
Yeah. I wish there was more sun on Sunday when I did it in the freaking rain. I was out there and it was raining, which is not so bad when you're staying in the river, but I really didn't bring rain gear because it's been 115 degrees here in Sacramento. And I didn't think that rain was on the agenda in Truckee, but nonetheless, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important question that we ask people is, what are you excited to do? Personally, I love defending and parrying a great strike to the head and delivering such a battling strike right back to the liver. So getting a good liver shot and then a headshot combo when you're sparring Muay Thai is very exciting in my head. It's what I've become very passionate about over the last many months with my guy Tag and Dustin over their Ultimate Fitness. But so that's the more combative lifestyle that I love, and then the Sunday morning lifestyles with my dad. And then on Saturdays, I'm yelling on the sidelines, hoping my kids can sprint for the ball playing soccer. So that's kind of like,
I think you have an outstanding job of living these different lives within one. It's not like it's broken up in any way. It's just that you have to switch your personality.
Very
what's in front of you
very
at the
different.
time.
Yeah.
Is it 3 daughters? Is it a patient? Is it your dad? Is it
Well, because the ball sports they have all this like technical components of the ball sports, and you got to pass and go back and team, and they got all the chants. The girls in the chants are. Well, we saw it with the volleyball.
Oh yeah, they do.
They had like 8 different chants.
Yeah, learning the songs is half the deal. Yeah,
learning the songs.
And then the timing, the ability of them to do that quickly is amazing.
Yeah, it kind of syncs up the culture in a moment,
Yeah. It's unbelievable. All right, well, hope that's helpful. If you guys jump in the conversation and want to throw any kind of comments in, please do that below. We'll look forward to responding back to you and connecting with you guys.
And if you have any friends in Vegas, then connect with us there.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for watching KIMEcast.